Hi, everybody. So we are approaching week 7, and in preparation for week 7, I wanted to go over tips for writing a philosophy paper with you. So week 7 is important because at the end of that week, your term paper proposals will be due. And so, in hoping that I can help you feel more comfortable writing your philosophy paper, I put together this presentation with some steps for, just what you should be thinking about for how to write philosophically. So in the first step, I encourage you to ask yourself the question of what naturally interests you, right? So you don't want to spend time writing a paper that bores you or, it just isn't something you find interesting. And so, it just makes sense, right? Write a paper about something you're interested in. Are you interested in questions of identity and the self? Are you interested in metaphysical questions about what exists? Are you interested in epistemological questions, what we can know and how we know what we know? So spend some time thinking about that. What have you really enjoyed discussing so far in class? What was something you felt really compelled to engage in so far in this semester? I have some images here to sort of prompt your thinking. So, questions of identity, who are we, right? So when we refer to the self, what do we mean by that? And also, this could be questions of mind and body. Is the mind different from the body? What exactly are we referring to when we're discussing the mind? Is that something that's just reduced down to brain states? Is that something that's different and separate from the brain? Is there something kind of supernatural or metaphysical going on there? Questions of souls. Do we have souls? We can ask metaphysical questions in philosophy, questions about what really exists, what is reality, and epistemological questions, what does it mean to have true belief, or what does it mean to sort of to know something. What do we mean when we say that we know something? For example, if you've never been to France, what does it mean to say that you know France exists, as opposed to somebody who has been to France and claims that they know that France exists? Are there different ways of knowing, different sources of knowledge, for example? And then, of course, questions of morality are a common and interesting topic, right? So we can all think about ethical questions that can be concerning to human beings. How do we know what's right? Are there certain principles which tell us how to act or what is morally okay? So these are just some ideas to get you thinking here. But ultimately, I really want you discussing these questions with each other and trying to formulate your own ideas. So the second step is, what is the philosophical problem? So recognize that when you are going to write your paper or you're going to propose whatever your thesis is, that you need to have a philosophical problem that you are trying to answer, right? So we just went over some examples of that, right? So the philosophical problem should be a question. And then, of course, that question should be something that you're trying to answer with your own claim or what your thesis would be. But one thing that I wanted to make note of here in the step 3 of your slideshow here is that I want you to think about staying focused, right? So in philosophy, we can think of really broad questions, but because your paper isn't very long, it's important to keep your topic very narrow. And I'll give you feedback in your proposals, which will help you to understand whether or not your topic is narrow enough. But that's just something to keep in mind as you begin writing your paper. So probably one of the most important slides in this discussion, I want you to recognize that in this paper, you are taking a stance. What is your claim on the philosophical problem? What is your perspective? Use this paper to give yourself a voice, to be heard, right? So in philosophy, we're stating what we think is the answer to the philosophical problem that's being posed, and not necessarily what someone else thinks. Maybe you can use what someone else thinks to support what you think, but ideally here, we're hearing your voice. What is your stance? What's your thesis? And of course, an argument is always stronger when we can raise an objection to our argument. So the reason being because when we can answer an objection to our argument in our paper, it's naturally already making that argument stronger. You've already considered problems with your own argument. So consider raising an objection in your paper. So step 6, remember that we are writing philosophically. This is not a book report. You're not just conveying information to me about, different schools of thought or what different thinkers have said. While you can use these things in your paper to strengthen your paper and to bring, a bit more, to bring more support to your claims, recognize that we're writing philosophically, and writing philosophically is in the form of an argument, right? So stating the problem, stating what your thesis is or your stance on that problem, and then giving support or what are called premises to support that thesis. So you'd want to ideally come up with, more than a couple reasons that support the claim that you are making. And that should be the bulk of your paper. So a small portion of the paper is in the introduction, kind of setting up the philosophical problem. Then you're going to state your thesis. And then from there, you're going to spend the majority of the paper expanding on the support or the reasons that you're giving for your thesis, making them clearly stated and really explaining them in full detail. And then, of course, wrapping up with your conclusion. So number 7 is to remember that writing is a process. So we oftentimes in writing, especially in philosophy, might find that we come to a different conclusion by the end of our writing process than what we had initially proposed. And this is totally okay. It's not that you go into writing a paper knowing exactly what's going to be said and exactly what the outcome is going to be, but allow this paper to be sort of a creative process, working out of your own ideas, and sort of discovering for yourself what you happen to think about this philosophical problem, because it may not even be that clear to you, right? And then for the last slide, I want to encourage you guys to use the Writing Center. I think that it could be utilized so much more, and it's so easy to get help there. If you have questions with MLA citations and formatting and all that you can get that help through the Writing Center. And the beauty of the Writing Center is that there's actually an online writing lab, and I attached the link here in the slide for you. And recognize that you can submit your paper to the writing lab, and they will actually give you feedback all online. So for those of you, I see that I know that you're all online students, so make use of this and take advantage of it. And I wish you all luck on writing your paper. I want to encourage you to have confidence in yourself and your ideas. Don't be overwhelmed by the assignment. And just, really take pride in what you have to say. And I think you're all going to do a great job. Remember that you can email me if you have any questions or concerns, and certainly utilize the discussion posting space to interact with your peers about what you've been thinking. Bye.